My name's Jonathan Pierce. Private investigator. Mostly freelance. Occasionally, the police call me when something doesn't add up, when reports say one thing, but the scene tells another story. This time, it was a factory. A steel and concrete structure on the edge of the industrial district, the kind of place that never sleeps but always feels abandoned at night. The call came from a night shift supervisor named Daniels. His voice was tight, hurried, with the kind of urgency that doesn't need explanation. "Detective," he said, "I don't know how to put this. We were locked inside the plant last night. The doors, all of them. Automatic systems, they triggered on their own. No fire alarm, no malfunction reports, just locked. And some of the workers panicked." I asked for the address and arrived just before sunset. The factory loomed ahead, brick walls streaked with rust, windows dark and opaque, the faint hum of machines vibrating through the ground. Inside, the smell of oil and metal hit me immediately, familiar but heavy, like a warning. Daniels met me at the main gate. "3 nights now," he said. "Same time, same thing. Doors locking, alarms not registering. Our security logs show everything normal until the doors slammed shut." I walked with him through the assembly floor. The machines were silent. Forklifts rested under tarps. Conveyor belts stood still. Yet the air carried a tension, a residual motion, like the place remembered the chaos it had witnessed. Daniels handed me a stack of incident reports. Each one described the same sequence: workers in different sections, doors locking, panic, emergency systems failing, then, when the night shift ends, everything back to normal, as if nothing had happened. I asked to speak with the workers. Most were shaken but gave consistent accounts. One said, "It's like the factory closed itself on us. Nothing mechanical, nothing human, just locked. And the lights flickered before it started." Another added, "The intercom made noises, but no one spoke. Just static, patterns that sounded deliberate." By 11 p.m., I stayed on site. I walked through the corridors, checking every emergency exit, every sensor, every control panel. Everything was operational. No malfunctions. No tampering. Then at 2:42 a.m., I heard the first door slam. Not a mechanical failure, a heavy, solid slam that echoed down the hallway. I rushed toward the control room, heart racing. The digital display showed all doors locked. Emergency override attempts failed. Yet no alarm had triggered. I called Daniels over the radio. Static. Then a faint click, like a relay switching, and silence. I spent the rest of the night documenting every movement, every sound. By sunrise, the doors opened normally. Workers filed out. Machines powered up. And on the control panel, a single log entry appeared. "Lockout completed. All systems normal." No reason listed. No explanation. Nothing. By the next night, I returned to the factory before the shift started. Daniels met me at the gate again, his hands shaking slightly, a clipboard under his arm. "They're scared," he said. "The crew. Some refuse to work tonight. Others, they won't speak about what they saw last night." I nodded and asked to inspect the control room. It was a small, claustrophobic space with panels of switches, monitors, and digital displays lining the walls. The hum of backup generators filled the room. Every screen flickered with data: machine status, door locks, conveyor belts, emergency exits. Everything was nominal. I started reviewing the logs from the previous night. At 2:42 a.m., every door lock engaged simultaneously. Sensors reported all systems functioning. No alarms, no overrides attempted, no human input recorded. I walked the floor while the night shift began. Workers moved slowly, eyes darting to corners and shadows. The factory smelled of oil and sweat. The machines hummed to life under the workers' hands. Nothing appeared abnormal. Then, at precisely 2:42 a.m., the main doors slammed shut again. Solid metal against metal. Workers froze. The emergency lights flickered once, then returned to normal. I ran to the control room. Every terminal showed normal operation. No errors. No tampering. No power spikes. I called the night supervisor on the internal line. Daniels, check the floor doors. Static. Then calm. All doors locked. I demanded the override panel be used. Nothing. The system accepted my commands, but the locks didn't disengage. The crew began to murmur. Some tried to reach exits manually. Steel doors wouldn't budge. I watched the floor cameras. Nothing moved. No human figure triggered the locks. No mechanical interference. Just the doors. By 3:15 a.m., the tension was palpable. Workers leaned against machines, breathing heavily. Some whispered, others sat on crates. I made detailed notes, timestamps, reactions, machine states. Every detail mattered. When the first light of dawn filtered through the high windows, the doors unlocked by themselves. The night shift staggered out. Machines returned to normal operation. No logs explained why. No alarms recorded anything unusual. Daniels shook his head. I've never seen anything like it. And I don't want to. I stayed behind after everyone left. Alone in the control room, I examined the panels. Every system was functional, but there was something off. Small discrepancies in the logs, fractions of a second where data points didn't align. It was as if the system had processed commands that never existed. I photographed every screen, printed every log, and secured the data. This wasn't a malfunction. Someone, or something, had full control over the factory's systems. And they could choose exactly when to act. I didn't sleep that day. By the evening, I was back at the factory, ready to see what would happen next. By the following morning, I had secured every log, every timestamp, and access record from the factory. It was tedious work, but nothing in my career had prepared me for a situation like this. I started by tracing the lockout sequence through the factory's server. Every door, every mechanical interlock, every emergency override, all recorded normally. Except for tiny inconsistencies. Milliseconds where the system responded before a command was entered. Data points that existed without origin. I spoke with the IT contractor who maintained the system. He was a wiry man, eyes constantly scanning the floor like he expected the walls to speak. Software updates? I asked. All current, he said. No bugs we haven't patched. I requested network diagrams, wiring schematics, sensor layouts. Everything checked out. No unauthorized access. No backdoors. No remote commands. Yet the locks engaged, repeatedly, at the same exact time, every night, without fail. Next, I interviewed the night crew. Most were nervous, some reluctant to return. Their stories aligned, the doors slammed, lights flickered, intercoms hummed. No one touched a panel. No one tripped any sensors. And yet, the lockout completed every night. I walked the assembly floor again, alone, late at night. The factory smelled of metal and oil, the fluorescent lights humming softly. Every sensor I could find reported normal conditions. No movement. No anomalies. And yet, at exactly 2:42 a.m., the doors slammed, solid, deliberate, unavoidable. I returned to the control room and dug into archived logs. Past records showed that similar lockouts had occurred sporadically over the last 6 months. Minor at first, doors engaging for seconds, then disengaging. But gradually, the events had become longer, more frequent, until now, 3 consecutive nights of full lockdown. I considered sabotage. A disgruntled employee? A contractor with a grudge? But no one had access at the right time, and the timing was too precise, too controlled. By the 4th night, I installed my own monitoring equipment, independent cameras, motion sensors, and a digital recorder that ran separately from the factory systems. I stayed on site from dusk until dawn. At 2:42 a.m., the doors locked. I watched the monitors, every motion sensor, every camera. Nothing moved. No human figure. No mechanical anomaly. Just the doors, slamming shut with deliberate force. I ran to the control panel. Every terminal showed normal operation. Commands were accepted. Yet the locks stayed engaged. I reviewed my own cameras later. All footage was normal. No one entered the room. No shadows crossed the floor. The most unsettling part, when the doors unlocked at sunrise, my independent systems recorded no triggers at all, yet the factory logs showed every lockout as completed. By then, I understood one thing. Whatever was controlling the locks didn't need human intervention. It didn't need the system. It simply acted. By the 5th night, tension in the factory was palpable. Workers avoided the control room. Supervisors whispered in corners. Even Daniels, usually composed, fidgeted as if the walls themselves were watching. I requested full access to the server room. It was a narrow, windowless chamber behind the main control panel, filled with racks of blinking hardware and humming fans. I spent hours checking connections, running diagnostics, and comparing logs. Everything was as it should be. Power surges? None. Unauthorized access? None. Remote connections? None. Yet the doors engaged at the exact same second, every night. I considered the human element. Who had the knowledge, access, and motive to stage this? I interviewed the night supervisors individually. All denied tampering. All confirmed being on shift when the doors locked. One older worker, a mechanic named Hargrove, paused mid-sentence, sweat on his brow. "I swear, I didn't touch anything," he said quietly. "But it's like the factory decides for itself sometimes. The controls, they move on their own." I pressed him, but he shook his head. Fear had rooted itself deep, and I understood why. By 2:40 a.m., the factory floor was nearly empty. I stationed myself near the main control panel. The lights flickered slightly. A low mechanical hum vibrated through the steel beams. And then, at precisely 2:42 a.m., the doors slammed. I ran every override procedure. Every system acknowledged my input. The locks didn't disengage. I checked the wiring. Nothing unusual. No hidden circuits. No remote triggers. I noticed small scratches on the underside of the panel, almost imperceptible. Fresh. Someone had opened the casing recently. A tool mark, consistent with a maintenance wrench. I documented everything and photographed the scratches. This wasn't a random malfunction. Someone with access and technical knowledge had tampered with the panel. And they were careful, almost invisible. By sunrise, the doors opened as usual. Workers left quietly. Daniels avoided eye contact. I stayed behind to review the footage. Camera angles revealed nothing. No shadow. No figure. Just the doors locking, the lights flickering, and the factory vibrating with an almost human precision. The conclusion was simple and terrifying. Someone was manipulating the system from the inside, and they could remain completely hidden. I returned to the factory for the 6th night, fully prepared. Cameras, sensors, portable recorders, everything I could set up without drawing attention. The staff was reduced to skeleton crews, still nervous, still jumping at every sound. I stationed myself in the control room, waiting for the inevitable. By 2:40 a.m., the usual hum filled the factory. The shadows seemed sharper. Machines stood silently like sentinels. At 2:42 a.m., the doors slammed. I triggered my override. Nothing. The locks held. But this time, I was ready. I had set my portable cameras to record the wiring and panels directly. I began to scan the maintenance hatch, checking for tampering. And then I noticed it, a small keycard left behind, partially hidden in a conduit. Not issued to any current staff. I traced the access logs. One name kept appearing in late-night entries: Elliot Kramer, a former technician laid off 6 months earlier. He still had clearance for temporary maintenance. And he knew the system intimately. By dawn, I confronted Kramer at his apartment. He didn't resist. No dramatic confession, no apologies. He explained calmly. I wanted them to respect the rules. To fear the consequences. The management ignored safety protocols. People were careless. I just reminded them. He hadn't intended to hurt anyone. He had rigged the doors to lock, timed the override failures, and used minor adjustments to remain invisible on logs and cameras. The scratches I noticed? His handiwork during the setup. I documented everything. The factory reinstated strict security and replaced the outdated control system. Kramer was taken into custody. By the next week, operations returned to normal. The machines ran. Doors worked. Workers resumed their routines. But I couldn't shake the memory of those nights, the floors vibrating, the lights flickering, and the precise, humanless execution of the lockout. It was a reminder. The scariest threats don't come from ghosts or myths. They come from someone who knows exactly how to hide in plain sight. And as I left the factory for the last time, I glanced at the control panel. It hummed quietly, obedient, as if nothing had ever happened. But I knew better.